The sun cast long shadows across the frontier trading post as Tekoda pushed his daughter forward. Ayana's eyes widened in disbelief as her father accepted the wooden barrel, avoiding her gaze. The whispers around them grew louder. A daughter traded for whiskey on her 18th birthday. But beneath Tekoda's weathered face lay the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. His calloused hands, once gentle when braiding her hair as a child, now pushed her toward strangers. What the onlookers couldn't see were the tribal scouts watching from the hills, the warlord's men searching for the girl, promised to their leader. What sacrifice would a father make to spare his daughter from a fate worse than death? Could Ayana ever understand that sometimes betrayal wears the face of the deepest love? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn broke over the nomadic camp, painting the tipis with golden light. Ayana woke before the others, her fingers instinctively reaching for the ceremonial necklace at her throat. Turquoise and bone beads strung together by her mother's hands before illness took her 5 winters ago. Today marked 18 years since her birth, a day when girls of the tribe traditionally stepped into womanhood. She slipped outside, careful not to wake the healer's apprentices with whom she shared quarters. The morning air carried the scent of sage and pine. Smoke rose from cooking fires as the camp stirred to life. Women gathered water from the nearby stream while men prepared for hunting parties. Children chased each other between dwellings, their laughter like birdsong. "The spirits blessed your mother with your birth," came a weathered voice. Elder Nuna approached, her wrinkled hands extended in greeting. "She would be proud of the woman you've become." Ayana bowed her head respectfully. "I feel her absence most deeply today, as is natural." The elder placed a protective hand on Ayana's shoulder. "Your ceremony begins at sundown. The women will prepare you." Her eyes darkened momentarily. "Has there been word from your father?" "None in many moons," Ayana replied, the familiar ache of abandonment tightening her chest. Tekoda had been gone for nearly a year this time, longer than ever before. Some whispered he would never return. "Maka asks about you," Nuna said cautiously, watching Ayana's reaction. Ayana's stomach knotted at the warlord's name. Though respected for his hunting prowess and leadership in tribal conflicts, Maka's 3 previous wives had all died under mysterious circumstances. At 40 winters, his eyes followed 18-year-old Ayana with unsettling hunger. "I have no interest in Maka's attention," Ayana said firmly, touching her necklace for courage. The elder nodded, but looked troubled. "Be mindful, child. He grows in influence daily." Throughout the morning, Ayana collected herbs for the healing lodge, finding comfort in the familiar ritual. Her fingers brushed sage, yarrow, and juniper as her mind wandered to memories of her father. Rare moments when Tekoda's stern face had softened, teaching her to track game or identify stars in the night sky. Before the darkness had claimed him after her mother's death, by midday a commotion at the camp's edge drew everyone's attention. Riders approached, and whispers spread quickly. "Tekoda returns." Ayana's heart leapt to her throat as she watched from the healing lodge. The man who dismounted bore little resemblance to the father she remembered. Tekoda's once proud shoulders were bent, his face gaunt beneath his weathered copper skin. New scars marked his arms. His eyes, when they briefly met hers across the distance, held something she couldn't decipher. The tribal council gathered immediately, an unusual occurrence that set tongues wagging. Ayana was kept away, occupied with preparations for her ceremony. Women bathed her in herb-infused water, painted symbols of womanhood on her skin, and adorned her hair with feathers and beads. "Your father spoke with the council about you," one woman whispered as she braided Ayana's long black hair. "What did he say?" Ayana asked, but the woman merely shook her head. As dusk approached, Ayana caught glimpses of Tekoda in deep conversation with the elders. Once she saw him arguing with Maka, their bodies tense like wolves preparing to fight. Later, Takoda stood alone at the edge of camp, staring at the distant mountains, as though seeking answers in their ancient slopes. When he approached her finally, his steps were heavy, his eyes avoiding hers. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice rough like stone, "we journey to the trading post. I have arranged something for your birthday." Before she could question him, he pressed something into her palm, a small bundle wrapped in deer hide, then walked away without another word. That night, during her ceremony, Ayana felt watchful eyes from all sides, the proud gaze of the elders, the calculating stare of Maka, and the troubled, distant look of her father, who stood apart from the celebrations like a man attending his own funeral. Takoda sat alone by a small fire at the camp's edge, turning his battle-scarred knife over in his hands. The firelight caught on its notched blade. 15 marks, 15 enemies sent to the spirit world. Once, the tribe had celebrated each notch with songs of his bravery. Now they whispered of his shame. He tested the edge with his thumb, drawing a thin line of blood, still sharp, like the memories that haunted him. The knife had been a gift from Ayana's grandfather, presented when Takoda married into the tribe. "Protect what is yours," the old man had said. Takoda had failed at that most sacred duty. "She has your stubbornness," came a voice from the darkness. Takoda didn't look up as Elder Nuna lowered herself beside him, her joints creaking with age. "And her mother's heart. Why have you returned now?" Nuna asked, feeding a small branch to the flames. "You know why." Takoda sheathed the knife. "Maka grows bold. He has declared his intention to take her as wife after her ceremony." Nuna confirmed. "The council is divided, some fear opposing him." Takoda's jaw tightened. "And you allowed this?" "I have no sons with strong arms, Takoda. Only my voice, which grows fainter each season." Her eyes reflected the firelight like dark pools. "Where were you when she needed a protector?" The accusation cut deeper than any blade. Takoda had left after his wife's death, returning only briefly over the years. Each time, the distance between father and daughter had grown wider. "I have made arrangements," he said finally. "What arrangements? The less you know, the safer you remain." Takoda gazed across the sleeping camp to the lodge where Ayana slept. "Maka has 3 dead wives. My daughter will not be the 4th. He will hunt you both," Nuna warned. "Let him try." Takoda's hand returned to his knife. "I have faced worse enemies." The old woman studied him. "The tribe still tells stories of your former glory, Takoda, of battles won and enemies vanquished. They also speak of how the death of your wife broke something within you, how the warrior became a wanderer, seeking death in distant lands." Takoda remained silent. "What changed?" she pressed. "I found something worth living for." He met her gaze steadily. "A chance to honor my promise to her mother." Morning brought a tense council gathering. Takoda stood before the tribal leaders, Maka among them. The warlord's face remained impassive, but hatred smoldered in his eyes. "You abandoned your place among us," spoke the head elder. "You return now, on your daughter's ceremony day, and demand to be heard. I come as is my right, as Ayana's father." Takoda's voice carried across the circle, "to speak of her future." Maka leaned forward. "Her future is decided. She will strengthen our tribe through union with a warrior of proven strength. A warrior whose wives die like flowers in winter frost." Takoda challenged. Murmurs rippled through the circle. Maka's hand moved to his weapon. "Choose your next words carefully, Ghostwalker. I claim the father's right to guide my daughter's first steps into womanhood." Takoda stated formally. "1 moon, as tradition allows, before any marriage can be arranged." The elders conferred in low voices. Such a request was deeply traditional, difficult to deny without cause. "It is granted," the head elder finally announced. 1 moon, no more." Maka's face darkened. "And if you disappear again, then she is yours to claim," Takoda replied, the words bitter on his tongue. "A necessary deception." Later, as Tikoda prepared his sparse belongings, Nuna brought him a small medicine bundle. "Protection," she explained, "for your journey. I know you planned something foolish and dangerous." She pressed the sacred bundle into his hands. "I also know Maka's cruelty. If your plan fails, it won't." Tikoda secured the bundle inside his shirt, close to his heart. "By tomorrow night, Ayana will be beyond his reach. And you," Tikoda's gaze drifted to the distant mountains. "Some journeys have no return path." As he departed the Elder's Lodge, Tikoda saw Ayana across the camp, gathering herbs with the other young women. For a moment, she looked up, her eyes so like her mother's meeting. He wanted to go to her, to explain everything, but the watching eyes of Maka's loyal followers made that impossible. Instead, he clutched the medicine bundle and silently renewed his vow. By sunset tomorrow, his daughter would be free, whatever the cost to himself. Under a moonless sky, Tikoda moved like a shadow through the pine forest. The night air carried the scent of rain as he approached the meeting place, neutral ground between tribal territories. His hand rested on his knife, alert to every sound. The clearing appeared empty, but Tikoda knew better. "I come as arranged," he called softly. Alone and unarmed. A half-truth, he would never truly be unarmed. Figures emerged from the darkness. 3 warriors from the Eagle Feather tribe, led by Chief Hanska, a broad-shouldered man with silver streaking his braided hair. Tikoda Ghostwalker. Hanska stepped forward. "Many winters have passed since you fought alongside my father. Yet you remember our blood oath." Tikoda extended his arm in the traditional greeting, which Hanska returned, clasping forearms. "I remember, though I question the wisdom of what you propose." The chief motioned for his warriors to keep watch. "Trading your daughter, such actions can't be undone." From his pouch, Tikoda withdrew a folded deerskin, a map marked with secret trails. "Not trading, saving." By the light of a small shielded flame, he showed Hanska the map's markings, hidden paths through the mountains, routes known only to the oldest hunters. "Maka claims her for his next wife," Tikoda explained. "She would not survive the winter." Understanding darkened Hanska's face. The warlord's reputation extended beyond tribal boundaries. "And the whiskey barrel, the rumors we've encouraged. A necessary deception. Maka must believe I sold her for personal gain." Tikoda's voice grew hoarse. "He must never suspect the truth, that she travels to safety beyond his reach. My son Kemi will guide her to our winter grounds," Hanska promised. "She will be treated with honor, taught our ways. When spring comes, choices will be hers alone. And the payment I've promised." Hanska shook his head. "Keep your hunting territories. This is not commerce, but honor. My father's debt to you is finally repaid." A distant owl call, the signal from Hanska's scouts. "Riders approach from the south," the warrior reported. "Maka's men," Tikoda cursed under his breath. "He suspects." "The trading post at sunrise," Hanska confirmed quickly. "Bring her. My people will be waiting." He clasped Tikoda's arm once more. "For your daughter's sake, make the betrayal convincing." As the Eagle Feather warriors melted into the forest, Tikoda studied the map one final time, memorizing each marking. These hidden trails would be Ayana's pathway to freedom, and his own route if he survived what was to come. Dawn was still hours away as Tikoda returned to camp. He froze at the edge of the clearing, sensing another presence. His knife appeared in his hand instantly. "Planning your escape, Ghostwalker." Maka stepped from behind a large pine, 2 of his warriors flanking him. "Preparing for my daughter's ceremony," Tikoda replied evenly, sliding the map into his sleeve. "Strange preparation that takes you to enemy territory." Maka's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Perhaps the council should hear of this. Perhaps they should hear of your midnight raids on settler camps." Tikoda kept his voice neutral. "Or how your last wife didn't die from fever as you claimed." The warriors tensed, hands moving to weapons, but Maka, raised a hand to still them. Dangerous words from a man with no standing. I have standing enough as her father. For now. Maka stepped closer. Enjoy your one moon, Ghost Walker. When it ends, she will be mine. And you, his knife flashed in the darkness, you will finally join your wife in the spirit lands. After they departed, Takoda leaned against a tree, heart pounding. The confrontation confirmed his fears. There was no time to waste. Maka wouldn't wait the promised month. The trade must happen tomorrow. Back in his small lodge, Takoda opened a hidden pouch sewn into his bedroll. Inside lay a smooth stone carved into half a heart, the match to one he'd given Ayana as a child. Beside it, a small leather bundle containing personal items, her mother's hairpin, dried flowers from her birthplace, and a message written in the old symbols only she would understand. These, along with the map, would be his final gifts to her. Clues to help her understand his actions when the time was right. As first light crept over the eastern hills, Takoda prepared himself. Today he would become what the tribe already thought him to be, a disgraced warrior who sold his own daughter. He would bear that shame, carry it like armor, if it meant Ayana would live free from Maka's shadow. He touched the half-heart stone once more before wrapping it carefully. "Forgive me," he whispered, though whether to his daughter or his dead wife, even he wasn't certain. Ayana woke with the sun, excitement fluttering in her chest. Despite the strange tensions of the previous day, her father had promised a special journey for her birth. Perhaps, she thought hopefully, this meant a reconciliation between them. She dressed in her finest deerskin dress, embroidered with porcupine quills and patterns her mother had taught her. The ceremonial necklace hung at her throat, a comforting weight around her. The other young women whispered and cast curious glances. "Your father waits by the eastern trail," one girl informed her. "The elders have already blessed your journey." Outside, the morning air carried the scent of pine and wood smoke. Takoda stood apart from the others, his face impassive as granite. He had saddled 2 horses, unusual as their tribe typically traveled on foot, except for hunting parties. "We journey far today?" Ayana asked, approaching him. Takoda nodded without meeting her eyes. "The trading post, near the great river." Ayana's curiosity deepened. The trading post was where their people exchanged furs and crafts with other tribes, and occasionally with white settlers. It was a place of commerce, not celebration. "Why there?" Questions dimmed the beauty of surprise, he replied, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. He helped her mount, then handed her a small bundle, wrapped in soft hide. For later, as they rode out, Ayana felt eyes watching them. Elder Nuna with hands clasped as if in prayer, and Maka, whose dark gaze followed their departure with barely concealed rage. They traveled in silence for miles, the terrain changing from forest to rolling hills. Occasionally Takoda would point out tracks or plants, small moments of connection that reminded Ayana of earlier times when he had been more present in her life. Yet something in his manner remained distant, almost sad. "You've grown strong," he said suddenly as they paused to water the horses at a stream. "Like your mother." Ayana looked up, startled by the personal observation. "You rarely speak of her." "Words cannot hold what was lost." He stared into the flowing water. "But I see her in you. Her wisdom, her healing touch." He hesitated, then added, "Her courage." "Did she have courage at the end?" Ayana asked. The old pain surfaced. She had been too young to fully understand her mother's illness, only that Takoda had changed afterward, becoming a shadow of himself. "More than any warrior I've known." Takoda mounted his horse again. "We must continue. The day grows short." As they approached the trading post by midday, Ayana noticed Takoda scanning the surroundings with increasing vigilance. His hand never strayed far from his knife. The post itself was a collection of rough-hewn buildings where various tribes gathered to trade. Today it seemed unusually crowded. "Stay close," Takoda instructed as they dismounted. Iana followed him through the throng, noticing the stares they attracted. Her father's reputation preceded him even here. They passed traders displaying blankets, weapons and tools, but Takoda showed no interest in these wares. Near the center of the post, a group of warriors waited, members of the Eagle Feather tribe, recognizable by their distinctive paint and dress. Among them stood a tall young man, whose eyes widened slightly upon seeing Iana. "Wait here," Takoda said, moving to speak with the Eagle Feather leader. Left alone, Iana clutched the small bundle her father had given her. Curiosity overtook her, and she carefully unwrapped it, finding a collection of small treasures: her mother's hairpin, dried flowers she recognized from her childhood home, and a message written in the old symbols her mother had taught her in secret. Before she could decipher it, a commotion erupted nearby. A wooden barrel was rolled forward. Foreign whiskey, judging by the markings, a rare and valuable commodity. The Eagle Feather leader nodded to Takoda, who glanced back at Iana with an expression she couldn't read. Then, in a moment that would forever divide her life into before and after, Takoda strode back to her, took her firmly by the arm, and propelled her toward the Eagle Feather warriors. "Father," confusion turned to disbelief as the transaction became clear. The whispers around them confirmed her worst fears. "He's trading his daughter, on her birthday, for whiskey." "No," she whispered, looking into Takoda's face for denial. She found only stony resolve. "Go with them," he said, his voice hardened. "Your life is no longer with our people." "How could you?" Tears burned her eyes. After everything, he cut her off by pushing the bundle back into her hands. "Take this. Remember what I've taught you." For a fleeting instant, something like anguish crossed his features. Survival first, understanding later. As the young Eagle Feather warrior gently led her away, Iana looked back at her father. He stood alone, hand on the whiskey barrel, his face a mask as the crowd's murmurs grew around him. "I hate you," she cried out, her voice breaking. "I will never forgive this betrayal." If her words wounded him, Takoda showed no sign. He turned away, shoulders squared, becoming smaller as distance grew between them. The final image of her father. She would carry a man who had sold his only daughter for a barrel of whiskey on her 18th birthday. Numb with shock, Iana barely registered the journey from the trading post. The young Eagle Feather warrior, Kema, she learned, kept a respectful distance while ensuring she didn't flee. Not that escape seemed possible with 3 other warriors riding as escorts. They traveled until dusk, making camp in a sheltered valley, while the men tended the horses and built a fire. Iana sat apart, clutching her mother's necklace, her only familiar comfort in this strange new world. "You should eat," Kema said, offering a wooden bowl of stew. When she didn't respond, he placed it beside her and retreated. Later, as stars pierced the night sky, the Eagle Feather chieftain approached. Hanska was older than Takoda, with dignity etched in the lines of his weathered face. "Your father's actions seem cruel," he said without preamble. "But understand this, you are not property here. Not slave, not wife. You journey with us as a guest." Iana's head snapped up. A guest does not require guards. Protection, not imprisonment. Hanska gestured toward the surrounding forest. "Maka's scouts follow. They would return you to a darker fate." The name sent ice through her veins. "How do you know of Maka?" "Your father told me. It is why we arranged." He stopped abruptly. "Arranged what?" Iana demanded. "My purchase." Hanska studied her, then reached into his pouch. "Among our people, we have traditions for recording important events." He handed her a leather-bound journal, its cover etched with symbols of the Eagle Feather tribe. "Perhaps writing your thoughts will bring clarity when words fail." She accepted the gift warily. "Why would you care for my thoughts?" "Because understanding requires perspective." He nodded toward her bundle of possessions. "And because some journeys must be documented to be believed." After Hanska departed, Iana opened the journal. Its pages were blank, except for the first, which bore a single line in careful script. Truth hides beneath betrayal's mask. Sleep eluded her that night. When the camp quieted, she unwrapped Takoda's gift bundle again, spreading the items before her. The hairpin that had belonged to her mother, dried flowers from the meadow where she was born, and the message in the old symbols that only women of her mother's line were taught. She traced the markings with her finger, translating slowly. The heart divides to protect its whole. Follow the eagle's path to safety. Trust the son of Hanska. Confusion mingled with anger. If Takoda had planned this with the Eagle Feather tribe, why the public humiliation? Why make everyone believe he had sold her like trade goods? A twig snapped nearby. Ayana quickly rewrapped her treasures as Kime appeared. "We move before dawn," he said. "Scouts report Marka's warriors cross the river. They pursue us?" Ayana asked, sudden fear displacing anger. Kime nodded grimly. "They claim you were promised to their leader, that your father stole what was rightfully Marka's." "I am no man's property," she said fiercely. For the first time, Kime smiled, a brief flash in the darkness. "My father said you would speak thus. It is why he agreed to Takoda's plan." "What plan?" Her heart quickened. "Tell me." But Kime only shook his head. "We ride hard tomorrow. You should rest." Sleep finally claimed her, bringing troubled dreams of her father standing alone at the trading post, his eyes following her departure with an expression she'd misread as indifference. In the dream, it transformed into something else, desperation, perhaps even sacrifice. They broke camp before first light, riding northwest through terrain that grew increasingly rugged. Ayana noticed how carefully Kime chose their path, often selecting routes that seemed deliberately difficult to track. By midday, they had climbed into pine-covered foothills. During a brief rest, Ayana approached Kime as he consulted with another warrior. "The whiskey barrel," she said. "What was truly inside?" Kime exchanged glances with his companion before answering. "Medicines, healing herbs, tools for survival, not whiskey. A story for those watching, nothing more." Realization dawned slowly. "My father arranged all this to get me away from Marka. The betrayal was—" Kime seemed to search for the right word. "Necessary." A distant horn call interrupted them. The warning signal from scouts ahead. Kemi's expression hardened. Riders approaching. "We must divide." He gestured for Ayana to mount. "You come with me." As they separated from the main group, Ayana clutched the journal Hanska had given her. If they survived this pursuit, she would begin recording her journey, not just the events but the truths beneath them. Starting with the most difficult truth of all, that her father's greatest betrayal might actually be his final act of love. Takoda watched from the edge of the trading post as the Eagle Feather warriors departed with Ayana. Her final words, "I hate you," echoed in his mind. A necessary wound. Better hatred than death at Marka's hand. He hauled the barrel onto his horse with deliberate showmanship, playing the role of the disgraced father who had traded his daughter for spirits. Whispers followed him as he rode away, not toward his tribe's camp, but on a circuitous route through the hill. At a secluded clearing, he dismounted and pried open the barrel. Inside were not spirits, but supplies, dried meat, medicines, extra weapons, all carefully packed by Hanska's people. Takoda transferred these to his saddlebags, then destroyed the barrel, scattering its pieces. Nightfall found him perched on a ridge, overlooking his tribe's camp. Cookfires dotted the clearing, figures moving among them, like shadows in a half-remembered dream. This place had once been home, before grief had hollowed him, before he had failed as both husband and father. A rustle of movement caught his attention. Elder Nuna approached, carrying a bundle wrapped in ceremonial cloth. "You've done it then," she said without greeting. Takoda nodded once. "It is finished." "Not quite." She handed him the bundle. "The tribal medicine. For your journey." He unwrapped it carefully, sacred herbs, protective totems, items of spiritual power. You risk much bringing this to me. An old woman has little left to fear. Her eyes reflected the distant fires. Maka returned shortly after you left. When he learned of Ayana's fate, his rage, she touched a fresh bruise on her arm. Takoda's hand moved to his knife. He dared harm you? His concern was not for me, but for your location. Nuna's voice remained steady. He has called for a council at dawn. He will demand hunters track you both. Let them come. Takoda secured the medicine bundle inside his shirt. By then, Ayana will be beyond his reach. And you? The question hung between them unanswered. They both knew the truth. Takoda had secured his daughter's escape, but his own path led elsewhere, perhaps to exile, perhaps to death. The tribe believes you sold her, Nuna said. Even those who once respected you now speak your name with contempt. Their contempt is a small price. Takoda gazed toward the north, where Ayana traveled. Maka would have destroyed her spirit before killing her body. I have seen the broken women he discards. Nuna studied him with ancient eyes. You honor your promise to her mother. Too late, perhaps. Bitterness edged his voice. I abandoned Ayana when she needed me most. Years lost to grief and cowardice, yet you return now when the danger is greatest. The elder's weathered hand gripped his arm with surprising strength. There is still time to be the father she deserves. A horn sounded from the camp, the gathering call. Takoda stiffened. They hunt already. Go, Nuna urged. I will delay them if possible. Dawn broke blood red over the tribal lands as Takoda pushed his horse through the forest. Behind him pursuit gathered. Maka would have assembled his fiercest warriors, men skilled in tracking even the most elusive prey. At a swift-flowing river, Takoda dismounted, leading his horse upstream for a distance before crossing. On the far bank, he paused, listening. No sounds of pursuit yet, but they would come. He rode hard through the morning, following game trails and rocky ground that would obscure his tracks. By midday, he reached a high plateau, offering a view of the vast territory. In the far distance, he could make out dust rising from what must be Ayana's party. Safe for now. A movement at the edge of his vision, 3 riders emerging from the tree line below. Maka himself led them, his face turned upward as if sensing Takoda's presence. Their eyes met across the distance. No words were needed. The hunt had begun in earnest. Takoda spurred his horse onward, following a route he had mapped in his mind, one that would lead his pursuers away from Ayana's path. As he rode, he touched the medicine bundle, drawing strength from its sacred power. Ahead lay a narrow pass, a perfect place for ambush. If he could eliminate even a few of Maka's warriors, it might buy precious time. Takoda dismounted, sending his horse ahead with a slap to its flank. Then he scrambled up the rocky slope, finding cover among the boulders. As he notched an arrow to his bow, Takoda's thoughts returned to Ayana. By now she would be beginning to understand his plan. The anger would remain, justifiably so, but perhaps someday she would also find forgiveness. If he survived long enough to ask for it. The pursuers entered the pass below, Maka still in the lead. Takoda drew back his bowstring, sighting along the arrow's shaft. One shot might end it all, but honor demanded otherwise. Not an ambush from hiding, but a formal challenge according to the old ways. Takoda lowered his bow. There would be another time, another place for such a reckoning. For now, the only victory that mattered was the one already achieved. His daughter's freedom. 5 days into their journey, Ayana watched the Eagle Feather tribe's temporary camp take shape. Women erected hide shelters, while men secured horses and established a perimeter. Children darted between tasks, their laughter a strange contrast to her own somber mood. You have questions, Cairn said, approaching with a hand-crafted bow. This might help answer some of them. Ayana accepted the weapon warily. Unlike the simple hunting bows of her tribe, this one featured intricate carvings along its length, symbols of protection and strength. I already know how to shoot, she said. Not like we do. Kemi's expression remained serious. Our ways differ from your people. They're not my people anymore, she replied bitterly. Kemi studied her, then nodded toward the edge of camp. Come, the day grows short, but there's time for a lesson. Reluctantly, Ayana followed. At a small clearing, Kemi demonstrated the eagle feather shooting stance, feet positioned differently than she'd been taught, drawing the string to the cheek rather than the ear. Your father requested this, Kemi explained as he corrected her grip, that you learn our ways of defense. My father, Ayana repeated flatly. The man who traded me for whiskey. Kemi lowered his bow. Is that what you still believe? I saw it happen. You saw what needed to be seen. Kemi hesitated. What Maka's spies needed to report. The whiskey barrel contained supplies, Ayana acknowledged. I know that much now. And the rest? Kemi asked. Has the journal revealed more? Each night, Ayana had written in the leather-bound book, recording events and studying her father's message. Slowly, fragments of understanding emerged, though the complete picture remained elusive. Why didn't he simply tell me? She demanded. Why this elaborate deception? Because Maka has eyes everywhere. Because your reaction needed to be genuine. Kemi handed her an arrow. Because a father's love sometimes wears strange disguises. Ayana knocked the arrow, drew back, and released. It flew wide of the target. I'm not sure I believe in that kind of love. Then believe in survival, Kemi replied, adjusting her stance again, which is what your father ensured. Their lesson continued until sunset, when Kemi's sister Halona called them to the evening meal. Unlike the others who maintained a respectful distance, Halona approached Ayana directly, her manner forthright. You shoot like you're angry at the target, she observed, offering Ayana a bowl of stew. Perhaps I am. Save that anger for Maka's warriors. Halona settled beside her. They crossed our hunting grounds yesterday. Ayana tensed. They follow us still, eh? Seek both you and your father. Halona's dark eyes held concern. The search party divided. Half pursue Pro, half search for you. That night, around the campfire, Chief Hanska shared news gathered from scouts. Maka had declared Takoda a traitor to the tribe, offering rewards for both father and daughter. He claims you were promised to him, Hanska told Ayana, that your father stole what was rightfully his. I was never his, Ayana said fiercely. No, the chief agreed, but Maka believes otherwise, and what he believes, he pursues without mercy. Later, in the privacy of her shelter, Ayana examined the bow Kemi had given her. Its carvings told stories of protection, of journeys, of transformation. Her fingers traced a particular symbol near the grip, two halves, a heart, separated yet connected. The same symbol from her father's message. On impulse, she retrieved the small bundle, unwrapping it to examine the heart-shaped stone Takoda had included. One half of a pair, she realized now. The other half must remain with him. In the journal, she wrote, perhaps betrayal and love can wear the same face when survival demands it. The following morning, Kemi found her practicing with the bow before sunrise. You couldn't sleep? He asked, retrieving her arrows. Dreams of pursuit. Inaya knocked another arrow. I need to be ready. Kemi nodded approvingly. Today we reach our summer hunting grounds. My father believes we'll be safer there. And if Maka follows, then he enters eagle feather territory uninvited. Kemi's expression hardened. An act of war. As they continued training, Ayana felt something shift within her. Anger transforming into resolve. Whatever her father's reasons, whatever truths remained hidden, one reality was clear. Her life now depended on new allies and new skills. When Kemi offered to teach her the eagle feather methods of tracking and concealment, she accepted without hesitation. By midday, they moved through the forest, practicing silent communication, reading signs others might miss. Your father said you were a quick learner, Kemi remarked as Ayana correctly identified week-old deer tracks. You spoke with him before the trading post. Kemi nodded. He came to our territory 3 moons ago seeking my father. They spoke alone for many hours. 3 moons, Ayana repeated. He planned this long before returning to our tribe. Some journeys require careful preparation. Keme pointed to distant mountains, especially those that cross the most dangerous territories. That evening, as the tribe made camp in their summer grounds, a scout arrived with news that sent a ripple of tension through the gathering. Maka has joined forces with the Stone Axe tribe, Hanska announced grimly. They offer bounties for information on the stolen daughter. Faces turned toward Ayana, not with accusation but concern. "And my father?" she asked, surprising herself with the worry in her voice. "He leads them away from our path," the scout reported. "But he cannot evade them forever." That night, Ayana added to her journal, "I begin to understand the price of my freedom. I only pray it does not cost my father's life." Takoda moved through the pine forest like a shadow, leaving minimal sign of his passage. 2 weeks had passed since the trading post, each day a careful dance of evasion and misdirection. He'd led Maka's hunting party in wide circles, sometimes doubling back to observe his pursuers from hidden vantage points. The ruse was working. They followed him northwest, away from Ayana's path. But fatigue was taking its toll. Food had been scarce, sleep interrupted by necessary vigilance. Most concerning was the wound in his side, reopened during a narrow escape 3 days prior. The tribal medicine helped, but infection threatened. At a small stream, Takoda paused to drink and examine his surroundings. Satisfied he was momentarily alone, he removed a small wooden carving from his pouch. A wolf, the symbol of his warrior lineage. With his knife he etched a subtle mark on its flank, then wedged it into the fork of a young pine. These markers served dual purposes. For Maka's trackers, they would appear as natural objects, easily overlooked, but to the eyes of an ally or his daughter, should fate ever bring her this way, they formed a trail of breadcrumbs, telling the story of his journey. "Still leaving signs, Ghost Walker," came a voice from the trees. Takoda whirled, knife drawn, to find 3 Fingers, an aging trapper he'd known for many seasons. The white man raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "Easy, friend. Ain't looking for trouble. These are dangerous hunting grounds," Takoda replied, not lowering his blade. Noticed that 3 Fingers settled on a fallen log. "Seen 6 warriors passing eastward yesterday, wearing Maka's markings." Takoda's attention sharpened. "Eastward? You're certain? Been tracking game 40 years. Know my directions." The trapper studied Takoda's haggard appearance. "They're hunting you, I reckon, among other prey." 3 Fingers nodded, understanding the implication. "Heard talk at the trading post. Daughter sold for whiskey. Strange tale. Tales grow with telling. Aye, and some hide truths beneath lies." The trapper pulled out a small pouch of tobacco, offering it to Takoda, who declined. "Maka's been asking questions at every camp and settlement, offering pelts for information." "What have you told him?" "That I saw a lone warrior heading toward Broken Tooth Mountain." 3 Fingers grinned, revealing several missing teeth. "Course I ain't been near Broken Tooth in a month." Takoda allowed himself a small smile. "My thanks, figured you had reasons." The trapper's expression grew serious. "But he ain't giving up. Got Stone Axe hunters joining the search now. They say he's promised the girl as bride to their chief's son." Fresh urgency surged through Takoda. If Stone Axe hunters joined the pursuit, Ayana might face danger from multiple directions. "Where exactly did you see Maka's warriors?" 3 Fingers described the location, uncomfortably close to where Takoda believed the Eagle Feather tribe would be traveling. Had Maka somehow divined their route? As the trapper departed, Takoda considered his options. The original plan had been to lead the pursuit far northwest before doubling back to join Ayana at the winter meeting place. But if Maka had split his forces, perhaps sensing the deception, decision made, Takoda broke camp and headed east. If Maka's warriors had indeed changed direction, he needed to intercept them before they crossed the Eagle Feather hunting grounds. By nightfall, Takoda's fever had worsened. The wound in his side throbbed with each heartbeat, and his vision occasionally blurred. Still, he pushed onward, stopping only when darkness made travel impossible. Under a half-moon, he examined the wound by touch more than sight. The skin around it felt hot, swollen. Drawing on his diminishing strength, he applied the last of the medicine from Nuna's bundle, binding the injury with strips torn from his shirt. "Not yet," he whispered to the spirits of his ancestors. "I cannot join you yet." Sleep brought fragments of memory. Ayana, as a child, learning to identify healing plants under her mother's guidance. His wife's face on their wedding day, crowned with eagle feathers. The moment he'd first held his newborn daughter, her tiny hand gripping his finger with surprising strength, and darker memories. His wife's final days, when illness had consumed her, despite Ayana's desperate attempts at healing. His own descent into grief, abandoning tribal responsibilities to wander distant territories, seeking death but finding only hollow existence. He woke before dawn, purpose renewed despite his weakened state. Whatever his past failures, whatever judgment awaited him, he would ensure Ayana's safety. This final act might not earn forgiveness, but it would fulfill his promise. 2 days later, Takoda reached a small trading settlement, the last outpost before the wilderness, that separated tribal territories. Ordinarily, he would have avoided such places, but necessity drove him forward. He needed supplies, information, and perhaps medical attention if the fever continued to rise. The settlement consisted of a few rough cabins, a trading store, and a stable. As Takoda approached, he noted with alarm how his hands trembled on the rein. The infection was advancing faster than he'd feared. At the edge of the clearing, his vision tunneled, darkness creeping in from the periphery. The last thing he saw before consciousness fled was a young woman running from the trading store, her mouth forming words he couldn't hear as the ground rushed up to meet him. 3 weeks after leaving the trading post, Ayana sat alone by a small stream, the leather journal open on her lap. Sunset painted the water copper and gold as she traced her mother's hairpin, a delicate thing of carved bone that had remained hidden in Takoda's gift bundle until now. The memories it evoked were like ghosts, her mother braiding her hair, singing softly, teaching her the women's medicine that Maka's tribe increasingly scorned in favor of warrior ways. The hairpin had disappeared after her mother's death, presumably buried with her. Yet here it was, preserved by Takoda all these years. "You found it," Halona said, approaching quietly. "We wondered when you would discover all the bundle contained." Ayana looked up. "He kept this from me. All this time, perhaps he kept it for the right moment." Halona settled beside her. Some gifts require proper seasons. Since joining the Eagle Feather people, Ayana had found unexpected friendship with Kame's sister. Unlike others who treated her with careful respect, Halona spoke directly without pretense. "There's more," Ayana admitted, revealing the final contents of the bundle, dried flowers wrapped around a folded piece of hide. On it, more symbols in her mother's secret writing. "Can you read these markings?" Halona asked. "It's the women's language of my mother's people, not meant for others' eyes." Ayana traced the symbols. "It speaks of journeys, separation, and reunion, of hearts divided, but not broken." "Like the stone," Halona observed. Ayana nodded, withdrawing the heart-shaped half-stone from her pouch. In the sunset light, its polished surface gleamed with faint red veins. "When I was very young, before my mother fell ill, my father gave us matching stones, one for her, one for me. When she died, both disappeared." Ayana turned the stone in her palm. "Now I understand. He kept them both, carrying her half until now, while keeping his distance from you," Halona said, understanding dawning, "to protect you from Maka's interest." The realization hit Ayana like a physical blow. "He left not from grief alone, but to draw Maka's attention away from me. My father says Maka has long sought alliances through marriage," Halona confirmed. "His previous wives were all daughters of tribal leaders, and all died mysteriously, The pieces aligned in Ayana's mind like stars forming constellations. My father knew what would happen if he remained close, showing interest in my welfare. So he became the disgraced warrior, the absent father. Helena continued, making you seem less valuable as a political prize. Until I came of age, and Maka decided to claim me regardless. Ayana closed her hand around the stone. So Takoda staged the ultimate disgrace, selling his daughter for whiskey to get me beyond Maka's reach. Returning to camp, Ayana sought out Chief Hanska, who sat outside his lodge crafting arrowheads. Without preamble, she placed the Heartstone before him. "You've known the truth from the beginning," she said. "That my father planned this long before the trading post." Hanska set aside his tools. "He came to me when the snow still covered the ground, spoke of dreams where Maka took you as wife, then killed you when you tried to flee. Why help us? Our tribes have no alliance. Your father saved my life many seasons ago during the Great Sickness. He brought medicine when others would not cross our borders." Hanska picked up the stone, examining it, "and he offered valuable hunting territories in exchange for your safe passage. Territories he no longer controls," Ayana pointed out. "A risk we both acknowledged." Hanska returned the stone. "Honor," demanded I help. "Honor and memory of your mother, who once healed my son when fever nearly claimed him." That evening, as the tribe shared stories around the campfire, a scout returned with news that silenced all conversation. Maka's warriors approached from the east. He reported, "They travel with stone axe hunters." "How many?" Hanska demanded. 12. "They follow a trail toward the trading settlement near Split Rock." The scout hesitated, "And there are rumors of a lone warrior who collapsed there 3 days past. Some say it was Takoda." Ayana's heart stuttered. "Is he alive?" The rumors did not say. Sleep eluded Ayana that night. In the privacy of her shelter, she opened the journal again, writing by the light of a small tallow lamp. The pages had become her confidant, recording her journey from betrayal to understanding. "My father may be dying while I find safety among strangers," she wrote. "The Heartstone becomes clearer now. Half remains with him, half travels with me. But what good is this symbol if he perishes before we reunite?" A soft scratching at her shelter flap interrupted her thoughts. Kamir entered, his expression grave. "We've called a council," he said. "My father believes Maka's approach is no coincidence. Someone must have revealed our location. What will happen? We move at first light, taking hidden trails to our winter grounds." Kamir hesitated, "But my father offers you a choice. Continue with us to safety, or," he pointed toward the distant settlement, "seek news of Takoda." "It could be a trap," Ayana said, though her heart had already decided. "Likely so." Kamir's face softened. "Which is why I've volunteered to accompany you should you choose that path." Ayana clutched the Heartstone, feeling its weight and solidity. After a lifetime of separation, after finally understanding her father's sacrifice, could she abandon him now? "We leave before dawn," she said quietly. "I must know if he lives." As Kamir departed to prepare, Ayana added a final line to her journal. "The half-heart returns to find its match, whatever dangers lie between." Maka crouched at the forest's edge, studying the small trading settlement through narrowed eyes. Behind him, warriors from his tribe and stone axe hunters waited in silent anticipation. The scent of wood smoke drifted from the settlement's chimneys, carrying promises of warmth denied to those who hunted in the wilderness. "The Ghost Walker is there," whispered Two Bears, his most trusted scout. Fever struck in the healer's cabin. "Alive?" Maka fingered the bone necklace at his throat, tokens from enemies who had crossed him. "Barely. The trader's daughter tends him." Satisfaction curled through Maka's chest. For weeks, Takoda had led them on a maddening chase, always one step ahead, despite their superior numbers. Now, weakened by infection, the Ghost Walker's legendary evasion skills had finally failed him. "And the girl?" Maka demanded. No sign of Ayana. Two Bears shifted uncomfortably. Our scouts report the Eagle Feather tribe has broken camp and scattered. She travels with them still. Rage flashed hot, then cooled into calculating patience. The father will draw the daughter. We wait. Makar withdrew from his pouch a silver medallion, a trading token he'd taken from a dead trapper years before. Such items held power with the white settlers, opening doors that might otherwise remain closed. Tonight, he decided, I will speak with the trader, alone. Across the valley, concealed in a rocky outcropping, Ayana and Kama observed the same settlement. The morning sun revealed thin smoke rising from chimneys, horses in crude corrals, a few figures moving between buildings. Makar's warriors watched from the south ridge. Kama said, pointing to a barely discernible movement among the trees. At least 10. Ayana's heart sank. Then the rumors about my father were true. They would not gather without purpose. It may be a trap, Kama reminded her. Bait to draw you in, or he may truly be injured and in need. Ayana touched the bow strapped to her back. Kama's gift, now a familiar extension of herself. I must know. They debated approaches as the day progressed, watching the settlement's rhythm. A trader and his family appeared to be the primary residents, along with a few trappers who came and went. One cabin stood apart from the others, with a woman making frequent visits carrying water and bundles of cloth. The healer's lodge, Ayana guessed. If my father is anywhere, it's there. As dusk approached, they noted increased activity, the trader lighting lanterns, his wife sweeping the porch, their daughter gathering firewood. We cannot approach directly, Kama said. Makar will have scouts watching every path. Ayana studied the settlement layout, her mind working through possibilities. The stream, she decided, pointing to where water flowed behind the cabins. It runs close to the healer's lodge. We can follow it under cover of darkness. Night fell like a heavy blanket, bringing deeper cold with it. Ayana and Kame moved silently through the forest, reaching the stream where it widened behind the settlement. Keeping to the water to mask their scent and tracks, they waded toward the dim light of the healer's cabin. A rustle nearby froze them in place. Ayana's hand moved to her knife as a figure emerged from shadows. The trader's daughter, emptying a basin of water. Their eyes met across the short distance. The young woman stiffened but didn't call out. Instead, after a moment's hesitation, she deliberately turned her back and returned to the cabin, leaving the door slightly ajar. An invitation, Kame whispered doubtfully, or another trap, Ayana replied. But we've come too far to turn back. Inside, a single candle illuminated a sparse room. On a narrow bed lay Takoda, his copper skin ashen with fever. Bandages wrapped his torso, dark with blood and poultice. The trader's daughter stood by the hearth, her expression wary but not hostile. You're his daughter, she said, not a question. Sarah Miller. She offered no hand in greeting. Your father's been calling your name in his fever dreams. Ayana approached the bed cautiously. Will he live? The wound festers. Sarah replied matter-of-factly. I've done what I can with herbs, but, she gestured helplessly. Recognitions flashed through Ayana. This woman had healing knowledge but lacked certain skills. Without conscious thought, Ayana began examining the wound, years of training under her tribe's healer guiding her hands. I need yarrow, pine resin, and your father had these. Sarah retrieved a small pouch from a shelf. He insisted we keep them near, even in delirium. Inside the pouch, Ayana found the remaining herbs from Nuna's medicine bundle, precisely what she needed. As she prepared a fresh poultice, Takoda stirred, his eyes opening briefly. Ayana, his voice emerged as a dry whisper. Not safe. Trap. I know, she soothed, continuing her work. Rest now. Kimir remained by the door, vigilant. We cannot linger, Marquez warriors. They're already here, Sarah interrupted. Their leader came at sunset, offering silver for information. She indicated a medallion on the table. My father took his payment, but asked for time to arrange things. He betrayed us. Ayana's hands stilled over her father's wound. No. Sarah's voice hardened. My father lost a brother to tribal raids. He has no love for Marquez kind. The silver was accepted to buy time. She glanced toward the main settlement. They expect us to deliver your father at dawn. We must move him tonight, Keme said, the urgency clear. He's too weak, Sarah objected. The fever. Death awaits regardless. Ayana completed the poultice application. Her decision made. Better to die free than in Marquez's hands. As they prepared a travois for transport, Takoda drifted in and out of consciousness. Once, his hand caught Ayana's wrist, with surprising strength. The Heartstone, he murmured. You found it? Yes. Ayana placed her half in his palm. I understand now. A ghost of a smile crossed his cracked lips. Then I have not failed entirely outside. The night grew darker as clouds obscured the moon. A blessing for their escape, if they could evade the watchful eyes surrounding the settlement. The mountain trail narrowed as dawn broke, forcing their small party to move in single file. Ayana led the way, with Keme guiding the travois that carried Takoda. Behind them, Sarah Miller followed, having insisted on accompanying them after her family created a diversion at the settlement. There's a place ahead, Sarah said, her breath clouding in the cold morning air. A hidden valley, where settlers and peaceful tribes sometimes trade. My grandmother lives there, a healer known to both worlds. Ayana glanced back at her father. The night's journey had taken its toll. His fever burned hotter, despite her treatments. How far? Half a day if we push hard. Keme scanned the ridge above them. Maka will have discovered our escape by now. His hunters will read the land like an open book. Then we must write a story they cannot follow. Ayana replied, eyeing a rocky stream that cut across their path. They diverted into the icy water, wading upstream for nearly a mile before emerging onto stone, outcroppings that would hold no tracks. Every step was carefully chosen, every sign of passage obscured or misdirected. By midday, they reached a high meadow ringed by ancient pines. At its center stood a lone cabin, with smoke rising from its chimney. Beside it, a garden of herbs grew despite the season's chill, a healer's garden. Ayana recognized, with plants from both native and settler traditions. An elderly woman emerged from the cabin, her silver hair bound in a single braid. She wore a settler's dress, but moved with the quiet dignity of a tribal elder. I've been expecting you, she said, gesturing them forward. The wind whispered of your coming. Inside, they laid Takoda on a bed near the hearth. The old woman, Grace, as Sarah called her, examined him with practiced hands. The body fights, but the spirit wavers, she pronounced. He walks between worlds. Ayana's throat tightened. Can you help him? I cannot call a spirit that wishes to depart. Grace's eyes, sharp despite her years, assessed Ayana. But perhaps his daughter can. From a shelf, Grace retrieved a small leather pouch, opening it to reveal an eagle feather talisman strung with beads and bones. This belonged to a great chief who once spared my life when others would have taken it, she explained. It carries wisdom from those who have walked difficult paths before us. She placed the talisman in Ayana's hands. Sit with your fathers, to his spirit while I prepare medicines for his body. Left alone with Takoda, Ayana clutched the talisman. Uncertain. What could she say to bridge the years of absence, the recent betrayal, even if now understood as necessary? Father, she began hesitantly, I know why you sent me away. I know what Maka intended. Takoda's eyes remained closed, his breathing shallow. The Heartstone, she continued, placing her half beside his. I understand its meaning now. All these years you kept your distance not from indifference, but from love. Something shifted in Takoda's expression, a flicker beneath closed eyelids. You protected me the only way you could. Ayana's voice grew stronger. Now I ask you to fight once more. Not for the tribe that abandoned you, not for honor or revenge, but for us. For the time we never had. Outside the cabin, Keme kept watch as Grace and Sarah prepared medicines. The afternoon deepened toward evening when a distant sound caught his attention, a bird call that no bird would make so late in the day. "Scouts," he warned, slipping inside. "They've found our trail." Grace's weathered face showed no fear. "This valley has hidden many who sought shelter. It will hide you too." She led them to a root cellar beneath the cabin, its entrance concealed by an herb rack. "An old route," she explained, pointing to a narrow tunnel at the back. "It emerges in the hills to the north." "My father cannot be moved again so soon," Ayana protested. "Then you must stand and fight," Grace said simply, retrieving a rifle from above her hearth. "I choose to stand with you." As dusk approached, they prepared the cabin for defense. Ayana positioned herself at a window with her bow, while Keme took the rear approach with his knife and axe. Sarah and Grace remained with Takoda, ready to move him to the cellar if their position was overrun. "They come," Keme called softly, identifying movement at the forest's edge. Ayana counted 7 warriors emerging from the trees, Maka at their center, his face painted for battle. "He expected resistance," she said grimly. "Nocking an arrow. The others must be circling behind," Keme replied. Grace's voice came from beside the hearth, calm and certain. "This ground has known blood before. It will drink again before night falls." Maka advanced into the meadow, raising a hand in what appeared to be a gesture of parley. "Daughter of Takoda," he called. "Come forth and speak." "A trap," Keme warned. "Of course," Ayana agreed, but stepped to the doorway nonetheless, bow half-drawn. "I have nothing to say to you, Maka. You stand with enemies against your own tribe," he replied. "Return willingly, and your father's life may be spared." "You offer what is not yours to give," Ayana called back. "My father's life belongs to the spirits, and my freedom is my own." Maka's face darkened. "Then you choose death for you both." "No," came a hoarse voice from behind her. Takoda stood in the cabin doorway, supporting himself against the frame. Though fever still flushed his face, his eyes burned with clarity. "She chooses life beyond your shadow." A murmur ran through the warriors at the sight of Takoda upright. Even Maka seemed momentarily taken aback. "The Ghost Walker rises once more," he said, recovering quickly. "But even spirits can be sent to the afterlife with proper weapons." Takoda stepped forward despite Ayana's attempt to hold him back. "I challenge you, Maka, by the old laws that even you must honor single combat, for my daughter's freedom." The meadow fell silent, save for the whisper of wind through pine needles. Every warrior knew the sacred nature of such a challenge. To refuse would be to lose face before his men. "So be it," Maka finally agreed, a predatory smile spreading across his face. "At dawn tomorrow, when you fall, all that was yours becomes mine, including your daughter." As Maka and his warriors withdrew to make camp at the meadow's edge, Takoda's strength finally failed him. Ayana caught him as he collapsed, fear and admiration warring in her heart. "Why?" she demanded, as they helped him back inside. "You can barely stand, because some battles," Takoda whispered, "can only be ended one way." Through the night, Takoda prepared himself for what dawn would bring. Seated cross-legged before the hearth, he cleaned his knife with methodical care, testing its edge against his thumb. The blade had taken many lives over the years. Perhaps tomorrow it would take one more, or fail in the attempt. "You should rest," Ayana said, bringing a cup of medicine brewed from Grace's herbs. "Save your strength. There are different kinds of strength," Takoda replied, accepting the cup. "The body weakens, but the spirit must grow stronger." They sat in silence, the fire's glow softening the lines of age and hardship on Takoda's face. For a moment, Ayana glimpsed the father she barely remembered from childhood, the proud warrior who had once lifted her to touch the stars. "When your mother died," Takoda said at last, "I failed you. Grief consumed me, but that is no excuse. You left to protect me from Makesh." Ayana said, "I understand now." Partly, Takoda set aside the knife, But truth has many layers. I left because I could not bear to see her eyes looking back at me from your face. Every day you grew more like her, a constant reminder of my failure to save her. Ayana absorbed this painful confession. And now I see that you are your own spirit, not merely an echo of her. He met her gaze directly, a spirit stronger than either of us imagined. From his pouch, Takoda withdrew a small object wrapped in soft hide. Unwrapping it revealed a miniature tribal war drum, perfectly crafted with stretched hide and sinew. This belonged to your grandfather, and his father before him, he explained. The one who calls the drum calls warriors to battle. Ayana recognized its significance immediately. You kept this all these years, for the day it might be needed again. Takoda pressed it into her hand. If I fall tomorrow, you won't, she interrupted. If I fall, he continued firmly, take it to 3 Hawks at the Western Ridge. He opposed Maka before my exile. With this drum, he can call those still loyal to the old way. I won't need it, Ayana insisted. Your strength will return by morning. Takoda's smile held gentle certainty. The wound is deep, the infection spreading. Grace's medicine brings clarity, but it cannot heal what is broken inside. His hand moved to his side, where fresh blood had seeped through the bandages. I will face Maka with what strength remains. The rest must come from here. He touched his chest, and from those who watch from the spirit world. In the corner, Grace worked quietly, grinding herbs and murmuring prayers that bridged 2 traditions. Sarah sat with Kame near the window, discussing escape routes should the combat go poorly. Why did you never seek help for your wound? Ayana asked. Some hurts are carried as reminders, Takoda replied. This one I earned protecting a family of settlers from raiders. I counted it fair exchange for my earlier failures. The night deepened around them. Takoda instructed Ayana in the ritual preparations for combat, the prayers, the symbolic markings, the centering of spirit. Though raised in their traditions, much had been kept from her under Maka's growing influence. He corrupted the old ways, Takoda explained, twisting sacred practices to serve his ambition. Yet the tribe followed him. Fear is a powerful weapon. Those who opposed him met unfortunate accidents. Takoda's expression darkened, including your mother. Ayana's breath caught. What are you saying? She discovered Maka poisoning the previous chief. Slowly, subtly. When she confronted him privately, her illness began shortly after. Takoda's hands tightened on the knife. I could prove nothing, but I knew. We all knew. Why didn't you challenge him then? I was broken by grief, unworthy of combat. Shame colored his voice. By the time I found my courage again, his position was too secure. I could only protect you by seeming to abandon you. Dawn approached with silent footsteps. Outside, Maka's warriors began ritual chants, sounds designed to intimidate, to remind Takoda of the tribe that had cast him out. Grace approached with a small pottery bowl containing a dark paste. For strength, she said, applying it to Takoda's chest in sacred patterns. The settlers call it a poultice. Your people would name it medicine paint. Takoda nodded thanks, then turned to Ayana. Whatever happens, remember that every choice I made, even the ones that hurt you, came from love. I know, she whispered, helping him rise as the first light breached the horizon. Kime joined them at the door. Maka prepares with 6 warriors around him. The others remain hidden in the trees. As expected, Takoda straightened his shoulders with effort. He has never fought his own battles when others could bleed for him. The small drum rested in Ayana's hands, its weight disproportionate to its size. I still say we could flee. The tunnel, running ends nothing, Takoda said firmly. Some circles must be closed. Some debts paid in full. He stepped onto the porch as the sun crested the eastern mountains, illuminating the meadow in golden light. Across the open ground, Maki emerged from his warrior's circle, his chest painted with symbols of victory. his face a mask of anticipated triumph. "I face him alone," Takoda told Ayana, though his eyes held a question. She clasped his arm. "Warrior to warrior, never alone again, father." While Takoda prepared for battle, Ayana slipped away to the back of Grace's cabin. Her mind raced with newfound knowledge. Her mother's death at Make's hands, her father's years of protective exile, the true nature of the tribe's corruption. Each revelation shifted her understanding of the past, illuminating shadows she hadn't known existed. In the small herb garden she knelt, pressing her palms to the earth as her mother had taught her. "Guide me," she whispered to spirits she wasn't certain could hear. "Show me the path forward." "Seeking wisdom from the soil?" Kemi asked, approaching quietly. "From those who have returned to it," she replied, not looking up. He settled beside her. "My father would say that wisdom also flows in the blood, passed down through generations. And what would you say? That sometimes we must forge new paths when old ones fail." From his pack, Kemi withdrew a rolled hide, a map marked with intricate trails and symbols. "This shows all possible routes from this valley. Whichever direction events take today, we should be prepared." Ayana studied the crossroads map, noting how trails converged and diverged like the tributaries of a great river. Some led deeper into Eagle Feather territory, others toward distant settlements, and one marked with a symbol she recognized from her mother's teachings toward her ancestral homeland. "You've included every possibility," she observed. Almost, Kemi's finger traced a path that returned to her tribe's territory. "This would be the most dangerous choice, yet you included it, because it might be necessary. If your father defeats Make, the tribe will need new leadership." His eyes met hers. They might look to the daughter of Takoda. The possibility settled over Ayana like a heavy mantle. She had never considered returning to lead those who had allowed Make's corruption to flourish. "I have no desire for such power," she said. "Perhaps that is precisely why you should hold it." Kemi rolled the map, returning it to her. "Those who hunger for authority are rarely worthy of it." Back inside, they found Grace preparing Takoda's final battle adornments, feathers and beads symbolizing protection, strength, and clarity of purpose. The old woman moved with practiced precision, her fingers nimble despite her years. "You see farther than most," Grace said to Ayana, without turning. "The gift of second sight runs in your blood." "I see only what is before me," Ayana replied. "Then you haven't been looking properly." Grace finally faced her. "Your mother possessed the healing vision. So do you. That is why Make feared her, and now fears you." "How could you know about my mother?" "Our paths crossed many seasons ago, when she sought certain herbs that grow only in this valley." Grace continued her preparation. She spoke of a daughter who would one day bridge worlds divided by fear and misunderstanding. Sarah entered, interrupting with news. "Make sends a messenger. The combat is to be at high noon, when the sun stands witness overhead." "Traditional," Takoda commented, "though I doubt his respect for tradition extends beyond what serves him. He also demands the combat circle be drawn in the center of the meadow." Sarah added, "Exposed on all sides, of course." Takoda nodded grimly. "Where his hidden archers have clear sight, if the battle turns against him." The revelation wasn't surprising, yet it confirmed what they all suspected. Make would not honor the sacred laws of combat if defeat threatened. "Then we must have our own precautions," Kemi said. He turned to Sarah. "Does your grandmother permit visitors, besides us?" "Traders sometimes," she replied, "and a few from peaceful tribes who seek her healing. Might any be nearby now?" Understanding dawned in Sarah's eyes. "I'll check the usual camps." As she departed, Ayana confronted the reality of their situation. "Even if we find allies, we're outnumbered." "Numbers aren't everything," Takoda said. "Make's warriors follow from fear, not loyalty. If he falls, most will not continue the fight." "If," Ayana emphasized, unable to ignore her father's weakened state. Takoda smiled with unexpected serenity. "Death comes for all eventually. The only choice is whether to meet it with purpose or flee in vain. The morning advanced toward noon with tense preparation. Ayana found herself torn between hoping for her father's victory and planning for his defeat. She checked and rechecked her bow, counted arrows, studied the terrain for escape routes, all while watching Takoda gather his remaining strength through meditation and prayer. Sarah returned with cautious optimism. 3 trappers who trade with Grace are camped beyond the North Ridge. They've had disagreements with Maka's raiders before. Will they stand with us? Keme asked. They're considering it, Sarah replied. They want to know what's offered in return. Tell them the Eagle Feather tribe guarantees safe passage through our hunting grounds, Keme said, and exclusive trading rights at our winter gathering. As Sarah left again, Ayana approached her father. You should eat something before noon. Food would only slow me now. Takoda's eyes remained fixed on the meadow, where Maka's warriors prepared the combat circle. My strength must come from deeper sources. She knelt beside him. I wish I had known you better, that we had more time. We have this moment, he replied. Summer granted less. His hand covered hers briefly. If I fall today, do not seek vengeance. Choose your own path, whether it leads back to our people or toward a new horizon. And if you win, Takoda's expression grew distant. Then many things must change. Old corruptions must be cleansed, old wrongs righted. He looked at her directly. I would need my daughter's wisdom for such a task. The weight of choice pressed upon Ayana. Return to a tribe that had rejected her, or forge a new life among strangers. Lead beside her father, or seek independence elsewhere. The crossroads map seemed to burn in her pouch, each path calling with different promises and dangers. As the sun climbed toward its zenith, a horn call echoed across the meadow, Maka's summons to combat. Takoda rose, gathering himself for what lay ahead. Whatever happens, he told Ayana, know that you have already saved me in ways that matter most. She watched him walk toward the combat circle, his steps steady despite his wound, his shoulders straight with purpose rather than pride. Behind her, Kame and Grace prepared for whatever outcome the noon sun might witness. The circle closes, Grace murmured, as it must. The combat circle had been drawn with ceremonial precision, a perfect ring of white stones in the meadow's center. Around it, Maka's warriors stood at regular intervals, faces painted for witnessing sacred battle. Beyond them, Ayana knew, others waited in the forest's edge, bows ready should their leader require intervention. Kame positioned himself near Grace's porch, his own bow strung and ready. The trappers have agreed to help, he whispered to Ayana. They're positioned in the trees to the north. How many? 3. Not many, but they know this terrain better than Maka's people. Ayana nodded, her focus returning to her father as he performed final preparation. Takoda knelt at the meadow's edge, a sacred pipe laid before him. The pipe, carved from red stone and adorned with eagle feathers, was a traditional element of pre-battle ritual, a connection to ancestors and spirit guides. He should not face this alone, she said, moving forward before Kame could object. She approached her father and knelt opposite him, the pipe between them. For a moment, Takoda seemed surprised, then nodded with approval. Though women rarely participated in warrior rituals, circumstances had cast Ayana in unprecedented roles. The smoke carries prayers to those who watch from beyond. Takoda explained, filling the pipe bowl with a mixture of tobacco and sacred herbs. It reminds us that life, like smoke, is temporary but meaningful. He lit the pipe with practiced motions, drawing deeply before passing it to Ayana. She hesitated only briefly before accepting it, an action that would have been forbidden in Maka's corrupted version of their tradition. What prayer shall I offer? She asked, the pipe warm in her hands. Truth, Takoda replied simply. The spirits value honesty above eloquence. Ayana drew from the pipe, the smoke filling her lungs with unexpected warmth. As she exhaled toward the sky, she silently formed her prayer, not for her father's victory, but for his peace, whatever outcome awaited. Across the meadow, Maka performed his own rituals, surrounded by sycophants who echoed his every motion. His preparations were ostentatious, designed to intimidate rather than center the spirit. "He has always confused spectacle with power," Takoda observed. "It is his greatest weakness." A drum began to beat, slow, steady pulses that matched the rhythm of Ayana's heart. Time seemed to condense around them as Takoda rose, securing his knife at his waist. "Whatever happens," he said, "do not interfere unless Maka breaks the sacred law. This is between him and me. I understand." She touched his arm. "Fight with clear eyes, father." As Takoda moved toward the circle, Grace approached Ayana with a small container of sacred paint. "For courage," she said, marking Ayana's forehead with a single line, "and clarity when the moment of decision arrives." The old woman's words carried prophetic weight. Ayana recognized that more hung in the balance than her father's life. The future of multiple paths converged on this single point of confrontation. Maka entered the circle from the opposite side, his muscular body gleaming with oil, his face a mask of arrogant confidence. Where Takoda carried only his knife, Maka displayed both knife and tomahawk, permitted by combat rules, but a clear signal of his intentions. "The Ghost Walker returns from exile," Maka called loudly enough for all to hear. "To die before those he abandoned." Takoda did not respond to the taunt, his expression calm as stone as he stepped into the circle. An elder from Maka's group, one Ayana recognized as once having been respected before becoming the warlord's puppet, recited the sacred laws of combat. "The circle contains the battle. To step outside is to forfeit. No interference is permitted from those who witness. Combat continues until submission or death." The elder raised his arms. "May the spirits guide the worthy." With these words, the ritual was complete. Only Takoda and Maka remained within the circle, opponents circling each other with measured steps. Maka struck first, a swift, powerful lunge with his knife that would have disemboweled a lesser opponent. But despite his weakened state, Takoda moved with the fluid grace that had earned him his Ghostwalker name, seeming to flow away from the blade like water around stone. "Still quick for a dying man," Maka sneered, adjusting his grip. "But how long can you dance, old friend?" Takoda remained silent, conserving breath and energy. His strategy became clear to Ayana. He would let Maka exhaust himself with aggressive attacks before striking with precision. The warlord pressed forward again, a flurry of slashes and feints. One caught Takoda's arm, drawing first blood. A cheer rose from Maka's warriors as red droplets spattered the ground. Ayana tensed, her hand moving instinctively to her bow. Kame's restraining touch on her shoulder reminded her of her promise. "Wait," he whispered. "Your father has drawn blood in more battles than Maka has seen seasons." Indeed, Takoda seemed untroubled by the wound. His movements remained economical, his focus absolute as he studied his opponent's patterns. When he finally struck, the motion was almost too fast to follow. A simple sidestep, followed by a precise slash that opened Maka's thigh. The warlord's roar of pain and rage echoed across the meadow. He staggered but recovered quickly, his face contorting with hatred. "You will die slowly for that," he hissed, switching tactics. Now he circled more cautiously, the tomahawk in his left hand, knife in his right. The combat continued, a deadly dance of advance and retreat. Both men collected wounds, some minor, others more significant. Blood darkened the ground within the circle, turning dust to mud beneath their feet. Ayana watched with growing concern as Takoda's movements gradually slowed. The infection that had weakened him before the battle now sapped his endurance. His breaths came harder, his reactions delayed by crucial fractions of seconds. Maka noticed too, his lips curved in cruel satisfaction as he pressed his advantage, driving Takoda toward the circle's edge with increasingly confident attacks. "He cannot last much longer," Grace murmured beside Ayana. "The spirit is willing but the body fails." The drumbeat continued its relentless rhythm, matching the hammering of Ayana's heart as she watched her father fight, not just for his life, but for hers, for the freedom and future he had sacrificed everything to secure. Blood darkened the combat circle as the sun reached its zenith. Takoda staggered, barely evading a vicious swing of Maka's tomahawk. The wound in his side had reopened, fresh crimson staining the bandages beneath his garments. "You are already defeated," Maka taunted, circling like a wolf, sensing weakness. "Yield, and I will make your death quick." Takoda's reply came between labored breaths. "My death was never in question, only yours." The cryptic response seemed to unsettle Maka momentarily. In that heartbeat of hesitation, Takoda lunged with unexpected speed, his knife finding Maka's shoulder. The warlord howled, stumbling backward. From her position at the meadow's edge, Ayana watched with mingled hope and dread. Each time her father seemed finished, he summoned some hidden reserve of strength. Yet each rally took a greater toll, leaving him more depleted. "He fights not with his body now, but with his spirit," Grace observed beside her. Few warriors achieve such transcendence. Movement at the forest's edge caught Ayana's attention. Not Maka's hidden archers, but familiar figures emerging cautiously from the trees. Her breath caught as she recognized Elder Nuna, accompanied by 3 warriors wearing the markings of those still loyal to the old ways. "Reinforcements," Kemi murmured, noticing her reaction. "Your father's influence reaches further than Maka realized." Within the circle, the combat intensified. Maka, enraged by his wound, and Takoda's continued defiance, abandoned strategy for brute force. His attacks became wilder, more desperate, the actions of a man unaccustomed to being challenged. Takoda, despite his weakening state, maintained the calm precision that had once made him legendary. He fought defensively now, conserving dwindling energy, seeking the single opening that might end the confrontation. It came when Maka, frustrated by his inability to land a decisive blow, attempted a reckless double strike with both weapons. The maneuver left him momentarily exposed. Takoda's knife flashed in the sunlight, opening a deep gash across Maka's chest. The warlord stumbled, shock evident on his face, as he looked down at the serious wound. For the first time, uncertainty replaced arrogance in his eyes. A murmur ran through the watching warriors. Blood trickled down Maka's torso, testament to a blow that could prove fatal if the combat continued much longer. "Finish it," Maka's lieutenant urged from beyond the circle. "Kill the Ghostwalker now." The command violated sacred protocol. No interference was permitted once combat began. Heads turned toward the speaker, disapproval evident even among Maka's supporters. Seizing the distraction, Maka edged toward the circle's boundary, where a hidden ally might pass him a more advantageous weapon. Takoda, despite his exhaustion, moved to intercept. "The circle holds us both," he reminded his opponent. "Step outside, and you forfeit more than this combat." Maka snarled, abandoning his plan, but launching into a renewed attack. The Thee men collided at the circle's center, blades flashing in deadly proximity. They fell together, rolling in the bloody dust, each seeking the advantage. When they separated, both rose more slowly than before. Takoda's breathing had become shallow, his movements increasingly stiff. Maka favored his wounded side, his earlier confidence replaced by grim determination. "They will both fall if this continues," Kemi said quietly. Ayana clutched the heart-shaped stone in her pocket, her half of the pair, the symbol of connection to her father. Its edges pressed into her palm, solid and real amid the nightmare unfolding before her. Within the circle, Takoda suddenly staggered, dropping to one knee. His face contorted with pain as he pressed a hand to his wounded side. Blood seeped between his fingers, a crimson tide that could not be stemmed. Triumph blazed in Maka's eyes as he raised his tomahawk for what would surely be the killing blow. "Your daughter watches you die," he gloated. "Before the sun sets, she will kneel before her new master." Something shifted in Takoda's expression, not fear of death, but a fierce, sudden clarity. As Maka's weapon descended, Takoda moved not away but toward the blow. Inside its arc, the tomahawk grazed his shoulder instead of splitting his skull. In the same motion, Takoda's knife found its mark, driving upward beneath Maka's ribs, seeking the heart. The warlord's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. This was always the only way it could end, Takoda said, his voice barely audible, as he twisted the blade. Maka's weapons fell from nerveless fingers. He opened his mouth, but only blood emerged, trickling down his chin. His legs buckled, and he collapsed within the sacred circle that had witnessed his rise and now his fall. A profound silence descended over the meadow. No warrior moved, no voice rose in protest or celebration. The moment hung suspended between heartbeats, between worlds. Then Takoda, too, collapsed beside his fallen enemy. "Father!" Ayana's cry shattered the silence as she ran forward, heedless of protocol now that the combat had concluded. She reached him as his eyes fluttered open, finding her face. "Ayana," he whispered, his voice faint but clear. "You came back." "I never truly left," she replied, cradling his head. Her hands came away red with blood, too much blood. Kemi and Grace hurried to join her, bringing medicines and bandages, but one look at Takoda's pallor told them what Ayana already knew. The victory had cost him everything. "The Heartstone," Takoda murmured, his hand seeking hers. "You have it still." She withdrew her half from her pocket, placing it in his palm alongside his own half. The two pieces fit together perfectly, forming a complete heart once more. "I understand now," she said, tears blurring her vision. "Everything you did, every sacrifice." A ghost of a smile touched Takoda's lips. "Then I die content." Around them, warriors from both sides formed a respectful circle. Even Maka's most loyal followers recognized the significance of what they had witnessed. A combat fought with honor against corruption, ancient traditions upheld in their truest form. Elder Nuna approached, kneeling opposite Ayana. "The tribe bears witness," she said formally. "Takoda, Ghost Walker, has prevailed through strength and righteousness. The circle is complete." Takoda's breathing grew more labored, each inhalation a battle, yet his eyes remained fixed on Ayana, as though memorizing her face for the journey ahead. "Lead them back to the true path," he whispered, "where your mother would have taken them had she lived." "I don't know if I can," Ayana admitted, overwhelmed by the weight of his request. "You already have." His hand tightened briefly around the reunited Heartstone. "By returning when you could have fled, by standing witness to truth." As the sun began its western descent, Takoda's eyes drifted toward the sky. "I see her waiting," he murmured. After all these years, the reunited Heartstone glowed warm between their joined hands as Takoda Ghostwalker released his final breath, his spirit departing to join the one he had mourned for so long. The ceremonial fires burned through the night, illuminating the meadow where two leaders had fallen, one to death, one to glory. Following traditions older than any living memory, the tribes had constructed a platform of pine branches, where Takoda's body lay in state, adorned with symbols of his warrior past and healer heritage. Ayana stood vigil, her grief a physical weight pressing against her chest. Around her, an unexpected gathering had formed. Maka's warriors now leaderless, the Eagle Feather representatives led by Keme, Elder Nuna and the loyal few who had followed her, even the trappers and settlers from nearby homesteads. Ancient enemies united in witness to an ending and a beginning. "The challenge staff must be planted," Elder Nuna said as dawn approached, presenting Ayana with a slender rod of polished wood, its surface carved with the history of tribal leadership challenges through generations. "It marks the passage of authority." The ceremonial staff represented more than merely the combat that had ended Maka's reign. It symbolized legitimacy, continuity, the thread that connected past to future through proper succession. Ayana accepted it with hands that felt too young, too inexperienced for such responsibility. "I am not of the leadership line," Your father won that right through combat, Nuna replied, and named you his successor with his dying breath. The old laws are clear. The weight of expectation pressed upon Ayana as heavily as her grief. She looked to Kama, whose steady presence had become an anchor in the chaos of recent days. "What of your people?" she asked him. "I was meant to join the Eagle Feather tribe. Some paths diverge only to converge again later," he answered cryptically. "My father anticipated this outcome." As the first rays of sunlight touched the meadow, Ayana approached the platform where her father lay. In death, Takoda's face had relaxed, the lines of pain and regret smoothed away. He appeared younger, at peace, reunited with the wife he had mourned for so many years. "I don't know if I can be what they need," she whispered to him, "or what you hope." The reunited heartstone rested on Takoda's chest, its two halves joined as one. Ayana had placed it there during the preparation rituals, a symbol of completion, of promises kept. Around the meadow, expectant faces watched, some hopeful, others calculating, all awaiting her decision. The challenge staff in her hand seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment. Elder Nuna approached again, her ancient eyes kind but unyielding. "The tribe stands at a crossroads. Without leadership, old rivalries will resurface. Maka's lieutenants already whisper among themselves." Ayana gazed across the gathering, identifying the ambitious warriors who had been Maka's closest allies. They watched her with barely concealed skepticism. A woman, barely of age, claiming leadership rights through a father long exiled. "There will be further challenges," she acknowledged. "Undoubtedly," Nuna agreed. "Power, once tasted, is not easily surrendered." Kemi stepped forward, offering unexpected counsel. "My father sends a message. The Eagle Feather tribe would welcome an alliance through marriage, should the daughter of Takoda wish to strengthen her position." The practical wisdom of such an arrangement was undeniable. It would provide Ayana with immediate allies, resources, protection, yet something in her resisted the political expediency that had driven so many tribal decisions under Maka's influence. "I would not use marriage as Maka used it, as a tool for power," she said quietly. Kemi's expression softened. "The offer comes from me as much as from my father, but it need not be decided now." The sun climbed higher, signaling the time for final rituals. As tradition demanded, Ayana took up the firebrand to light her father's funeral pyre. Before touching flame to wood, she addressed the gathered witnesses. Takoda Ghostwalker returned when he could have remained in exile. He faced death knowing it awaited him, because principles mattered more than survival. Her voice strengthened as she spoke. "He showed us that leadership is not about power, but sacrifice." She touched the brand to the dried pine, which caught quickly. Flames began to lick at the platform's edges. "I accept the challenge, staff, not as one who seeks authority, but as one who recognizes duty." She planted the staff firmly in the earth beside the growing fire. The path forward must be walked together, or not at all. As smoke spiraled skyward, carrying Takoda's spirit to the ancestors, Ayana felt a shift within herself, grief transforming into resolve, uncertainty into clarity. The leadership she would offer would be neither Maka's tyranny, nor a simple return to old ways. It would be something new, combining her father's warrior strength with her mother's healing wisdom. The most resistant of Maka's former allies stepped forward, a scarred warrior named Black Wolf, known for his unwavering loyalty to the fallen warlord. "The daughter stands where the father fell," he said, voice carrying across the now silent gathering. "But standing is not the same as leading." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was the challenge Nuna had predicted, coming sooner than expected. "You question my right?" Ayana asked, her hand moving instinctively to her knife. "I question your strength," Black Wolf clarified. "Maka led through fear and strength of arms. How will you hold together what he built?" The question laid bare the fundamental difference between Maka's vision and what Ayana hoped to create. She released her grip on her weapon, choosing a different path. "What Maka built was a prison of fear," she replied. "I offer something else, a return to balance between warrior and healer, between strength and wisdom. She looked across the gathering, meeting eyes both hostile and hopeful. Those who wish to follow Maka's path may leave freely. Those who stay must commit to rebuilding what was broken. Not just lodges and hunting grounds, but trust, faith, harmony with the land, and with each other. Black Wolf's expression remained skeptical, but something shifted in his stance. Fine word, but words don't fill empty stomachs or protect against enemies. No, Ayana agreed. Actions do. Judge me by those, starting today. As the funeral fire reached its peak, Ayana felt her father's presence one final time, not as grief or memory, but as strength flowing into her own spirit. She had begun this journey as a daughter betrayed. She would continue it as a leader found. The challenge staff stood firmly planted in the earth, marking the spot where one era had ended and another begun. The seasons turned, snow blanketing the valley before yielding to spring's tentative green. One full cycle of the moon had passed since Takoda's spirit joined the ancestors, since Ayana had planted the challenge staff and accepted the mantle of leadership. She stood now on the same ridge where her father had once watched over their tribal lands, observing the changes below. Where Maka's reign had emphasized warrior lodges and battle training, Ayana had restored balance, the healing lodge rebuilt, children's teaching circles re-established, women's councils given voice again in tribal decisions. Not all had welcomed these changes. Several of Maka's most devoted followers had departed, seeking other tribes more aligned with their warrior values. Others remained watchful, waiting for Ayana to falter. Yet with each passing day, her vision took stronger root. The hunting parties returned, Keme observed, joining her on the ridge. His visits from Eagle Feather territory had become regular, strengthening the alliance between their peoples. With full bags, I hope, Ayana replied. The spring gathering approaches. You're first as leader, he noted. Are you prepared? She smiled faintly. As prepared as one can be for what has never been done before. The spring gathering would bring together not only their own tribe, but representatives from neighboring peoples including the Eagle Feather tribe and, most remarkably, settlers from nearby homesteads. Such inclusive gatherings had once been common before suspicion and conflict had drawn sharp lines between peoples. Your father would be proud, Keme said, following her gaze across the renewed community below. You've accomplished much in a short time. With help, Ayana's hand moved unconsciously to the pouch at her waist, where she carried both halves of the Heartstone. She had removed it from Takoda's funeral pyre at the last moment, unable to part with this final connection. Some days I still feel his guidance. The descent from the ridge took them past the memorial marker erected where Takoda's ashes had been interred according to tradition. Simple yet dignified, it bore only his name and the symbol of the divided heart made whole, a testament to his final sacrifice and redemption. Ayana knelt briefly, placing fresh sage beside the marker. Though she had made this pilgrimage many times in recent moons, today felt different, a culmination rather than a remembrance. I need to show you something, she told Keme as they continued toward the camp. Something I've been working on. In her lodge, now the leader's dwelling, though far more modest than Maka's had been, Ayana retrieved a small wooden box crafted by her own hands during the winter moons. Its surface bore intricate carvings that told her father's story: the warrior, the grieving husband, the exiled protector, the returned champion. Inside rested the two halves of the Heartstone. These have remained separated too long, she explained, removing them carefully, just as our people have been divided from each other, from neighboring tribes, from the settlers who share these lands. From a small pot she took a mixture of pine resin and other elements she had prepared through careful experimentation, a healer's solution to join what had been broken. With steady hands she applied the adhesive to the stone's matching edges, then pressed them together. The seam where they joined was visible but strong, a line of experience rather than division. The heart divided is now whole again, she said, presenting the joined stone to Keme, as I hope our future will be. He understood the significance of the gesture, not merely personal, but symbolic of her leadership vision. Some wounds leave scars, he observed, tracing the line where the stone had been rejoined. But scars can strengthen what they mark. Together they walked to the center of the camp, where preparations for the spring gathering continued. Elder Nuna supervised young women, arranging ceremonial spaces, while Black Wolf, now cautiously supportive of Ayana's leadership, directed the construction of shelters for visiting dignitaries. Grace and Sarah Miller had arrived the previous day, bringing medicines and knowledge to share at the gathering. Their presence, settlers welcomed, as equals, embodied the new path Ayana had championed, despite resistance from traditionalists. "Gather the council," Ayana requested. "There is one final preparation before our guests arrive." When the tribal leaders assembled, a mix of elders who remembered the old ways and younger voices Ayana had elevated, she presented the reunited Heartstone. "My father carried half of this stone for years, keeping it separate from mine for our protection," she explained. "Today I've made them whole again, as we must make our community whole." She placed the stone upon the central council stone, where all could see its joined nature. "This will stand as our symbol going forward," she declared. "Not the weapons of war that Maka favored, but the heart that can break and yet be mended. The heart that remembers both joy and sorrow. The heart that finds strength in healing." Elder Nuna approached, her ancient fingers tracing the stone's surface. "Your mother would be proud," she said quietly. "She foresaw much of this before her passing." "As did my father, in his way," Ayana acknowledged. Though his path was longer and darker, as sunset painted the western sky with amber and gold. Ayana stood before her father's memorial, one final time before the gathering commenced. She placed the reunited Heartstone in a small niche carved for this purpose, securing it with the same mixture that had joined its halves. "Your final gift was not my freedom or even my life," she whispered to Takoda's spirit. "It was understanding that love sometimes wears the face of sacrifice, that the heart must sometimes break to become strong." The stone caught the fading sunlight, its joined seam visible, but beautiful, a testament to what had been endured and overcome. Kimmy waited at a respectful distance, allowing her this private moment before the public ceremonies began. When she finally turned away from the memorial, her steps were lighter, unburdened at last from grief's heaviest weight. "Ready?" he asked as she rejoined him. Ayana nodded, casting one last glance at the Heartstone that would watch over her father's resting place and stand as silent witness to the new beginning his sacrifice had purchased. "He gave me his heart," she said softly. "Now I give it back to him, made whole again." Together they walked toward the gathering fires, where two worlds prepared to meet as equals for the first time in generations, the legacy of a father who had once sold his daughter for whiskey, but had given her his heart instead.